I was sent this email the other week, and the request there was, let me get the mouse over, it's this curved bit down here that we're interested in. I'm not covering the bulk of it at all. And if you can look at this profile down here, let me just zoom that up a bit. We can see that we've got this front panel here, which is square, if you like, upright. We've got the side panels at an angle, and then they come down and they curve back to the base, which ends up with, let's see, you can see the curve there. And the difficulty was, I think, or the problem, the unknown, was creating this curve down here. Now, I'll show you a way I've done it. I'm not suggesting it's the only way, and I'm not suggesting it's the best way, but it's a way that allowed me to answer the email that I had. So let me pull up Fusion. Let's get rid of that a moment. Right, so there's the Fusion finish one. I'm not worried about the windows and the bits and pieces. I'm just looking at the front panel itself. And tonight I'm going to concentrate on this bottom half. The top half is just an extruded out, and you can just put windows on these faces to suit yourself. But what we're looking at is creating this curve. You can see the shape of it there. You've got the center bit, which is what I call straight down. And then you've got the curve, which comes that way and also that way. So I'm not sure. I should have titled these and I'd know which one I was looking at. Right, okay, so this is the curve one now that I'm going to show how to get. A little bit like a snowplow, really, I suppose. And I've been assured by the person who requested this that this is the sort of thing they were looking for. So let's have a look at how we do it. Now, I didn't go into that one, that's something else. Right, so I'll backtrack on this one. And we'll come forward. Whoops, let me just get back there. Right, and let's switch our sketches on. So the first thing I did was to create a sketch. Now, if you refer back to the drawing that we looked at, this is what I'm going to call the mid area, if you like, which I think is there. So that sketch is that line there. And the idea is we're going to use that as our base sketch. You can extrude up from that, and we'll be doing a lofting command down. So just to show you how we're going to go about it, let's go back to Fusion. So that's the one sketch. Now the next stage, I think, is to do the bottom sketch, which is the chassis. And for that one, I created an offset plane. And for this, I'd done about 10 millimeters. I didn't go into dimensions because the idea with this is to show you the technique, not necessarily the dimensions. Let's get the sketches switched on. So, whoops. Why is that there? We're getting somewhere. Hang on, let me just go back. I pressed the wrong buttons again, as I always do. Right, so there's the bottom sketch. Now that sketch there is on another plane. This plane is an offset plane. So that one in, let's get, this top one is drawn on that plane. This is an offset plane at the distance down that you want to go on that front panel, okay? And it's just a straight line. Now, what will become apparent is that what I've done, because this one was drawn underneath that one, and if we go on the top, we can see the pair of them together. Or where am I gone? Top. That's better. So let me just, so it's important, I found, that we put two lines here, which you'll see why we do that as we go through it. Now, if we look, the lines basically match up with this bend. These lines are on the bottom sketch, not the top sketch, okay? Now, this will become apparent as I take you through it. So there's our two bits that we would normally do a lofting on. Now, if we do a loft on there, we can click on the loft tool, highlight the one, highlight the other 3 because there's no 3 separate ones there, and we have the loft. But you can see we don't have the curved edges. The center one is fine, but this is not right at all. So let's cancel that and see how I got over this one. So what we do now, we go into 3D sketch mode, and this is where it gets a little bit awkward. So let me just go back one, and our aim now is to create a sketch, a line from that point to that point, and that's why I put those lines in there, which you'll see in a moment, why they're there. And we also do a sketch of a line at each end. So if I just go back a bit and we go into sketch mode, it doesn't really matter which plane you sketch on because you're going to do it in 3D when we get control of it again. The main thing here is also to make sure that the 3D sketch is turned on over here. So what you do is, and you really need to zoom in for this, go into the line command, and as I say, we need a line from here. Now, if you come across, when you get to the point in question, you'll see the square come up. That's the point to click it. And then we go down to our corresponding line over here, and again, come along until you get the square. And when you get the square, you know then, let me just get it back in. Whoops. I'll get the hang of this one day. You can see now I've actually got a line going from that point to that point. And I do the same thing on the ends, from that point down to that point. And the same on this bend here, from that point down to there, and the same on the end. So let me just cancel that and go back to our sketch on the next one. So you can see now I've got those 3 lines in place. But as I say, drawing in 3D can be a bit difficult because if you don't do it in that way, then your line could end up starting there and could end up anywhere down here. So you really need to have some reference points. Now you might think, well, why have I put straight lines here when I'm really aiming for the curve? Partly because by putting the straight line in, I found it easier to put the curve in. Because if you put the curve from that point to that point, the curve itself could go almost anywhere unless you're doing it right. So what I've done with that one is I then go into, let me just get it, let's get it the right way round here. This is where the fun starts. Bear with me. Right. I know it's upside down, but that doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do now is we're going back into sketch mode again. And what we're doing this time is drawing the curve from there to there. Now what we've got is that we've got the line to help us. So if we go on a slight angle there, and we go into the 3-point arc, we can then pick up that point quite easily. It will lock to it. We can come down to that point quite easily. Now you can see it can go all over the place, but because we've got that straight line to help us, then we can work out where we want the curve to go. Let's just get that. So you can see how you can come down. Now what you can do, of course, is that you can measure off from the straight line there as well, or you can do it purely by eye. If I go back now to the next line, finish the sketch, and you can see there now where I've done the curves. Let's get it the right way up. So you can see where I've drawn a curve from there to there. and then pulled it out from the line. Now, when you've done the one of them, it's easy to do the other one, because you go, if I was to do, let's just go into sketch mode again a moment, and I'll delete that one. Oops, let's get rid of it. I think that's the one I want to get rid of. Yeah. So let me go round. And right, and there. It's better. So I'm now gonna, we've done the sketch on the other end, the curve. I want to do the curve on this end. If you get it right the way round in that way, you can then go into sketch mode on there again. And of course, 3-point arc, pick up that point, make sure you got the square, pick up that point. Then all you've got to do actually is just line it up with that one. And that brings you the other one. If you want to measure this curve, then I would suggest maybe some measurement construction lines out from this straight line to get you. But really, I think it's a sort of curve that can be done almost freehand. So that's, you can see there where I've missed it. So what I'm going to do is undo that one. Let's go back. Because obviously I've picked up the wrong curve. If you find that happening, then you need to go into this sort of mode, do it again, make sure that you can get at it, and then down to that one, and then go up to the right one, and then line it up. 3D drawing can be a bit difficult because you're not quite sure where your points are. If we look at it now, we should be okay. They're in the right place now. You can see how easy it is to pick up the wrong one. So sometimes you have to just go into a 3D view as well to pick up the right points, and then go back into your right one to line it up with the other one. Hope that makes sense. Having got to that stage, we can now go into our extrude stage. So if we go into extrude now, loft, sorry, not extrude, loft it, and we're taking the top one, and we're taking it to the 3 bottom ones, and we've got the same stupid shape we had last time. But what we do now is use the rails. So we click on the rails, we select that rail and that rail, which forces the nice center one. Then we pick that rail, and we pick that rail, and we do OK. And if we switch the sketches off, we can now see we've got the shape that we want. Albeit proportionally, it's nothing like the original, but you can see how we got the curve. We've done lofting before, and I think the only lofting we've done is from shape to shape. If you want the lofting from shape to shape, but controlled, then you put rails in. And wherever you put the rails in, then the loft will do that rail. So what we've done there, if we'd have taken these rails out, let's just go back and see what we've got. Let's just take them. I don't know. Let's go back one a minute. If we close off that one and go back to, where am I? Put the sketches back on. Let's go back to the lofting again. And if we click on the top one, and of course this is in 3 sections because we got those lines, but those lines could have been construction lines. They're purely markers for those straight lines, as I said earlier. Now, if we only take, say, the end rails and ignore the center 2, you can see what happens. It will just go straight through, which is not what we want, because we want the center section square. So we have to have those rails as well. Now, if we'd have had another rail in there, we could have done all sorts of shapes. Using lofting with rails, you can create any shape you want. but it does start to get a bit awkward because, as I say, you're doing curves in 3D, and it's not that difficult once you start getting the hang of it. So that ends up really showing the shape that we want there. Switch off the sketches. Now, if from the point of view of the other ones on there, I would just lift that up, and we can extrude that up however far we want to go. Let's get it back in. Proportions are all over the place here, aren't they? And then if you want to do the curved on the top, which you've seen in the drawing, then the easy thing there is to pick the center sketch again on the arc, pick up the arc that you want, say there, and then I would just draw another rectangle anywhere up here, it doesn't matter. Finish the sketch, switch the sketches on, and then you would highlight that one, highlight those little bits there, and use the extrude tool and just shove it backwards. And that's the top done. And then on these, then you can just sketch, go on there, and then I'm not going to draw them in any degree of detail here, but you can just put your windows in wherever you want them. As I say, I'm not going to go through the detail here. And then just punch those out as well with the extrude command. And the same on the front, and the same with the panels. If we go back to the drawing that we had here, and you do the same with the panels, and the same with these, except these you wouldn't punch right through. You would just depress them by, if you've got a millimeter thickness a wall, then depress them by 1/4 millimeter or whatever it is you want for your size in your printing. And the same with these front panels here. They're all done the same way. That's just straightforward stuff, really. If you want to do the recessed panel on the curved one, then the answer on that one is slightly different. Let's get rid of this drawing again a minute. If you want to do something on this one, then what I would suggest on this one is that you use the emboss command. So we would do an emboss on that one, on this front panel, do our panel roughly there where we want it. This is covered in videos that we've got on my site and the Merg site. And then what you would do then, because if you do an extrusion, the extrusion will be deeper here than here, because of course the extrusion will hit this curve before it hits the other one. Whereas if you use the emboss command and the profile and then the face, which is there, and then you can emboss it on there, select the face, and then you can emboss that one back so it hits the face where you want it to, and have it embossed on there quite well. Okay, so that just about ends it, I think, unless there's any quick questions on that one. Are there questions?
Ross, I didn't say it when you were doing it, but I was wondering, using my brain, if you when you got to the rails, you obviously want the two middle ones straight. After you've done the curves, wouldn't it be an asset to actually remove the angled ones?
You mean these black ones here?
Yeah.
Well, you don't. Once you've got the curve in place, you don't need them.
I was going to say, but even so, before you put you do the arc.
Yeah, and then get rid of them. Oh yeah, yes, certainly. They are there. The only reason I put them there is because it gives you I found it gives you a better anchor point when you're putting the curve in, because you can find them easy. And also it allows it, if you really want to measure the curve, you've got something to measure the curve from, as it were. But no, they can be deleted because they're not used at all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, they're in one sense, really. you can argue they shouldn't be solid. They should be construction lines anyway. They're purely an aid. I found they're an aid to getting a nice curve in there visually. I know you could measure, you could measure off here and put a marker there. So you do a 3-point arc through a marker. It really depends what you want. I think for a model of this nature, to be honest with you, as long as you do by eye, a nice curve that's got a little bit of a straight bit there, so it doesn't curve like that, because obviously you don't want it curving beyond this upright. And I think the best way there is to do it by eye. So yeah, it's not necessary once you've got the endpoints in.
Thank you, Russ. That was really clear, and it solved the problem.
Good. When you first sent the email, I panicked a bit and I thought, oh, blimey, here we go. Because back when Malcolm and I done button to button 2 years ago now, really, wasn't it? One of the discussions we had there is compound curves.
Yeah.
And compound curves can get hairy. They really can, when you're putting curves on curves. I don't think we need to get into that area, because the other one that you may have looked at, Ian, which is on the website, on both websites, is when I done the roof of the GWR diesel coach.
Yeah.
Similar sort of technique, if you like. One of the things that I think people have got to realize now is that in sketch mode, I'm a big favor of cutting. Very quickly, if I just go back to, let me just do a quick new sketch just to demonstrate it, if you like. One of the things we done on your one section is to do your curve section, if you like, and I'm not doing this dimensionally now. I did it by doing that, and then I did a straight line, say from there to there, and my grid is already in the size that I want. I went from there to there. I love the scissors because then I cut out what I don't want. I prefer it to any of the delete tools. Now, the sort of thing you want a thickness to that. So the answer is to go there and put a thickness on. But then the angle, the ends then are not upright. So what I prefer to do is to take it the other way. I'm doing this quite quickly. Then I can draw the lines. So what I would do at the end one, because I want a square end, I would just draw there. Simple as that. And then I use my scissors command to chop that bit off and chop that bit off. I don't mess about trying to measure it or draw it. Scissors, I think, is the best command on there. There's no doubt about it, really. So, it's getting the shape. So hopefully that helps you, and hopefully it might point others. You can see now how that embossing has come on the end, which you wouldn't get with a straight emboss, because a straight extrude from here would extrude this side deeper than this side, because extrude goes back uniformly. You could use extrude on this face and this face, and even on these side faces, but on a curve use emboss. I think what we done is that, as you've heard, the button by button was good, but now it's really a case of interacting them.